Okay, so this is the hunt for Amanda Todd's killer.
Here we begin tonight with a cry for help heard around the world.
If the audio is too loud or too quiet, tell me, chats, and I'll fix it.
But heard too late. Her name was Amanda Todd. She was 15 years old.
In 2012, a story of a teenager took the world by storm.
What kind of person bullies a vulnerable child online?
Relentlessly harassed online, she was pushed to her breaking point with no one around to help.
The internet can be a very dark and dangerous place, a reality the family of BC teenager Amanda Todd lives with every day.
And for the past decade, her harasser has remained unpunished for his crimes. That is, until now. By all accounts, Amanda Todd was just an ordinary 7th grade girl living in British Columbia, Canada. She went to school, hung out with friends, and like most people her age in the early 2010s, was an avid user of social media platforms such as Facebook. She enjoyed making new friends online and chatting with them via webcam. At this point in time, meeting people on the internet.
God damn, it's lagging. What the fuck?
Internet was still a fairly new phenomena. Many parents didn't know about the dangers their children faced in these spaces, and thus took few precautions when it came to their safety. Because of this, naive youths like Amanda were easy targets for predators. These strangers would ingratiate themselves by frequently praising her and giving the young lady compliments about her appearance. Eventually, during one of these calls, they asked Amanda to disrobe for them, which she did. A year later, after she had long forgotten about the event, Miss Todd received a message on Facebook from an account she didn't recognize, claiming to have a nude image of her. He then went on to ask her to quote-unquote put on a show for him, threatening to expose the photo if she didn't. And just to prove he was serious, he listed off Amanda's school, home address, and the contact information for all of her friends and family. Feeling as though she had no other options, the teen did as she was told. A few months later, Amanda was awoken to a knock on her door at 4 in the morning. When she went to see who it was, she found the police standing on her front porch. Apparently, the photo the man had been blackmailing her with had leaked, and was spread to people throughout her community. The poor girl was no longer able to show her face in school.
Now.
Everyone she used to see as a friend now mocked and ridiculed her as they all shared the image amongst themselves.
That's fucking
Because
awful.
of this, Amanda's family decided to move to a new location. Amanda herself began experiencing severe anxiety and depression. It got so bad, in fact, that she turned to drugs and alcohol, which only worsened her mental health. A year after this, Amanda had finally settled into her new setting. She enrolled in a new school, made new friends, and had been able to put the past behind her. However, just when the adolescent's life was returning to normalcy, her stalker resurfaced, telling his victim that he had once again collected all of her personal information. Not only that, he created a new Facebook page using the nude image of the underage girl as his profile picture, and sent friend requests to all of her current classmates. This caused the bullying to start up all over again, driving Amanda even deeper into social isolation. With nobody to turn to and drugs and alcohol doing little to numb the pain, the teenager began self-harm as her last form of solace. Amanda was once again transferred to another school, which did seem to help. The bullying stopped, although the trauma of the last few years had left her uncomfortable with reaching out and becoming friendly with new people. But it was around this time that she began reconnecting with an old male friend. As they talked, he claimed to have a crush on Amanda despite the fact that he had a girlfriend, and invited her over to his house while his significant other was on vacation. The love-struck young girl agreed, and the two became intimate. For the first time in years, Amanda thought she had found a real human connection that made her happy. But she was brought crashing back down to earth a week later, when she was confronted at school by the girlfriend of the boy she had been with. The angry teen girl verbally berated Miss Todd, and a crowd of people all gathered to watch. One of the spectators then called for the girl to punch Amanda, which she did several times before teachers finally came to intervene. Once the fight was over, Amanda hid out in a ditch before her father arrived and took her home. This was rock.
Now, I'm not condoning home wrecking, but I can understand where she's coming from. I can actually understand where she's coming from with doing that. Knowing that he's in a relationship, it's more on the guy than it is her, I feel like, because she obviously has a lot of trauma and a lot of hurt when it comes to associating with people. So for her to find that person she felt comfortable with, regardless of whether they were in a relationship or not, was something big to her, and I can understand why she did that. And I can't hold her for it. I'm gonna be honest. I can't hold her for it. I understand. I mean, it is. I mean, that's understandable in my opinion. I feel like even though she knew that he was in a relationship, I still feel like it is what it is.
Bottom for her, as she
That's
was
my
once
opinion,
again humiliated in front of her entire school. This
That's
time
fucking
by a
heartbreaking.
crowd of peers cheering on the assailant. Amanda saw no way out.
Wasn't there a movie based on this on fucking ABC Family, or was it Freeform now? Wasn't there like a movie about this on Freeform with fucking what's her name, Lola from Hannah Montana? Or am I tripping? That might be. I think it's based off this, but I could be
Tried
tripping.
over and over again to start her life anew at multiple different settings, yet each attempt had ended the same. In her eyes, she had only one option remaining. When she got back to her house, she headed to the laundry room, grabbed a bottle of bleach, and tried to end her own life then and there by taking a swig. Thankfully, though, her father found her in time and rushed the teen to the hospital where she was able to recover. Although physically stable, her mental health was no better. She was once again moved to live with her mother, but people sent constant reminders of the event to her on Facebook. Her well-being was at an all-time low. Therapy had not been of help. She was too anxious to go to school or even leave the house, and had resorted to self-harm again. Apparently, the teenager had even overdosed on antidepressants, resulting in her being hospitalized for 2 days. In a desperate final plea to a cold, uncaring planet, Amanda posted a video to YouTube on September 7th, 2012, in which she told her story through a series of handwritten cards. The upload ended with the distraught teen begging for someone to come to her aid as she felt completely alone and hopeless. Unfortunately, though, things did not get better. On October 10th, 2012, at 6 p.m., Amanda Todd was found dead by suicide at the age of 15, devastating the family.
Old.
Following her death, the video she had uploaded a month prior began attracting more attention. While people had not thought much of it, with this new update in her story, it rapidly exploded in popularity. People across the world came together to discuss this tragic story of online harassment, pushed to an extreme. Vigils were held across Canada in Amanda's honor, and her mother, Carol Todd, was invited to speak at anti-bullying events. This saga caused much more attention to be placed on cyberbullying. Previously, it had been a subject few knew how to approach, as social media was still a relatively new invention that adults had not fully wrapped their heads around. But now that they had a specific example to look at, educators were much more equipped to teach their students about the dangers of the World Wide Web. Of course, with widespread attention being placed on this incident, people wanted to know who was responsible for driving a teenage girl to ending her own life. This question would lead to a decade-long hunt to bring justice in this case. With Amanda Todd now gone, a viral storm emerged online demanding answers. As it turns out, in the days following her daughter's death, Carol Todd claimed that it had all been carried out by a single pedo who had created dozens upon dozens of dummy accounts on social media. According to her, he would create new Facebook profiles every time Amanda changed schools, and wormed his way into her friend groups. Allegedly, the ordeal had been reported to the police several times prior to the young woman's death, but they had been unable to do anything about it, with their only advice to simply stop using Facebook. As mentioned earlier, with social media being such a new invention, most police departments had no training on dealing with crime surrounding it. So even when faced with the crimes of a serial sex offender, they did nothing to stop it. With the public's faith in law enforcement now shaken, it was time for people to take matters into their own hands. This is when the hacker group Anonymous entered the scene to use their computer skills to find the assailant. They claimed to have found the identity of Miss Todd's tormentor, a 32-year-old man from Vancouver, in under a week. According to them, not only had this man been in contact with Amanda before she died, but was already on trial for a separate sexual assault case involving a minor. Alongside this, they also published what they claimed to be his real name, address, and social media profiles. There was just one problem though. The address they doxed didn't actually belong to the person they named.
Oh my
Suddenly,
God.
a flood of harassing and threatening messages were being sent to a completely unrelated person who had no idea what was going on. As if that weren't bad enough, it turned out the rest of the information released by Anonymous wasn't entirely accurate either. In fact, pretty much everything was wrong. Not only was he 19 years old, and not 32 as they originally claimed, but authorities determined he was not the one responsible for harassing the dead teenager. While he had indeed been in contact with the adolescent, he claimed she had reached out to him for help tracking down her abuser, since he was, as he put it, a known hacker. The self-proclaimed computer expert did claim to know the true identity of the culprit behind the Amanda Todd case, a man in the United States. Anonymous also doxed this person, but he too turned out to not be the perpetrator. With this string of flubs, Anonymous decided to hang up their masks on this case, but people still demanded justice for Amanda Todd. Unfortunately, as months turned into years, they began to lose hope that this criminal would ever be punished for his crimes. It wouldn't be until January of 2014 that a suspect was finally arrested, a Dutch man by the name of Aiden Coban. According to police, Coban had been extorting at least 34 underage girls the same way he had been doing to Amanda, tricking them into exposing themselves on webcam and then blackmailing them with the evidence if they didn't do what he asked. Allegedly, his youngest victim was just 11 years of age. He had also been pulling a similar con on adult men, posing as younger boys to let their guards down, and then extorting them by threatening to expose their hobby if they didn't pay up. As it would soon turn out, authorities had actually been aware of Aiden when Amanda Todd was still alive. Earlier in 2012, a Norwegian girl reported a similar type of harassment to what Amanda was facing. Scandinavian police were able to track his IP address to the Netherlands. The case was then passed on to Dutch law enforcement, but not much was done beyond that. It was only after the high-profile suicide that Facebook conducted their own independent investigation and were able to link the IP addresses of the dummy accounts attacking Miss Todd to the European man. This is when authorities in the Netherlands finally tracked down Aiden to the trailer park where he lived and installed spyware on his computer. Through this, they found that his hard drives were filled with over 204,000 files of CP content, as well as over 5,000 names of potential future victims. With all this evidence, the serial predator was finally able to be detained on charges of extortion.
That's my birthday. What the fuck? April 11th? That's my birthday. What the fuck?
Luring, criminal harassment, and possession and distribution of child pornography, adding up to a whopping 72 offenses in total. In the years between his arrest and trial, Aiden would continually profess his innocence. He even published an open letter from jail, stating that police had the wrong man and that he had nothing to do with what happened to Amanda Todd. When his first day in court finally arrived in February of 2017, he pleaded not guilty on all charges. However, the judge disagreed, and Aiden was sentenced to 10 years and 8 months behind bars. This was not the end of the now convicted predator's legal proceedings, though. Justice still had to be served in the case of Amanda Todd. The convicted man was finally extradited to Canada in December of 2020. According to his lawyer, he was actually excited for this, as he saw it as an opportunity to clear his name. Apparently, despite all of the evidence against him and Dutch courts finding him guilty on all charges, Aiden remained adamant that he was not to blame. The second trial began on June 6, 2022. The prosecution once again set to work exposing the evidence linking Aiden to Todd. They showed the jury how several of the Facebook accounts who had been stalking the young girl were connected to a phone number associated with the accused. On top of this, several more details that were previously unknown were brought to light. Allegedly, in addition to impersonating a teenager in order to infiltrate Amanda's friend groups, Aiden would also pretend to be a child protective services agent. He would reportedly contact her school administrators, acting as a concerned representative, and link them to the nude images of
Oh
his
my
victim.
God.
However, the Dutch man's defense was not giving up their case without a fight. While the prosecution cited the files seized from Aiden's hard drives as proof of his guilt, his lawyers argued otherwise.
What a
The primary
fucking
piece of
loser.
evidence against the suspect in this case was a deleted file labeled AmandaTodd.wmv, which had been played on his computer. The defense argued that just because he had watched it, this alone did not prove he was the perpetrator. But the prosecution stood their ground, stating that since all the accounts attacking Amanda could be linked directly back to Aiden, he was the only one who could have been responsible. After 7 weeks of trial and 1 day of jury deliberation, Aiden Coben was once again found guilty of all charges laid against him. Once he is returned to the Netherlands, the now twice convicted pedo will not see the light of day for a very long time. Carol Todd expressed relief with the verdict, stating that she hoped the ruling would set a precedent moving forward, so that what happened to her daughter would never happen to anyone else again.
Man. That sucks.
So there you have the story of Amanda Todd. What began as a simple tale of cyberbullying gone too far quickly turned into the exposing of a man running a pedophile network out of a trailer. And with that, I think I'll end the video here. So until next time, thanks for watching.
Thanks, man. Fucking loser. Yo, imagine being a grown-ass adult and you spend fucking months
David Russell Williams
harassing a fucking 14 to 15, like, then 15-year-old, like, to the point that they commit suicide. Imagine. What a fucking loser. Of course he's a trailer park dwelling fucking nerd. I hope he dies in prison. I hope he fucking rots there the rest of his life. What a loser. Jesus Christ. Okay, let's watch something